Their next head coach, which is sort of a biannual event for them. Darvin Ham was fired by the organization Friday after just 2 seasons, both ending in playoff losses to the Nuggets. Did you hear Michael Wilbon on PTI after this news was announced? If you missed it, listen to this.
You know what? I'm angry. I've known Darvin Ham for a long time. And you're right. He's a great guy. And he's a pretty damn good coach. Because he took a team that had done nothing the year before, missed the playoffs. And last year they got to the conference finals with him. And everybody had praise for him, including LeBron and Anthony Davis. And now all of a sudden and I'm talking specifically to the two of them now. They blame him. Their public comments are inadequate. Let me just say this. If you want to be the GOAT, you want to tell everybody you're the GOAT, you're the greatest player of all time, you want to have it on podcasts, you want to have it, then take accountability like one. Do that.
That's Michael Wilbon saying that the 2 stars in L.A. passed the buck, and whether they got the coach fired or didn't support him, one way or the other, if those 2 guys said, we want Darvin Ham to be our coach, I think there's very little question he would still be their coach. Do you agree with Wilbon?
No, look, I don't think it's as simple as it's one way or the other. I think personnel-wise, they were outmatched against Denver.
Right.
It was difficult for them to do. But I think there were a lot of questionable decisions. And I go back to this. After they won the play-in tournament, they had a lot of rotational issues.
The in-season tournament you're talking about.
The in-season tournament.
Right.
There were a lot of questionable rotations that the Lakers had. I watched all their games. They went to a big guard lineup where you're playing Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish they were starting to bench. They benched D'Lo, Austin Reeves. They lost 10 out of 13 games. I think there were a lot of schematic challenges that LeBron was frustrated at. And look, I like Darvin Ham. I think at times Darvin Ham, it was hard for him to hold people accountable the same way. So
how are you holding people accountable on a team with LeBron and AD? Are you holding them accountable?
And Ime Udoka was holding people accountable. I mean, Mike Malone holds people accountable. I think
those guys weren't LeBron.
And I'm not saying it's all Darvin Ham's fault. I'm not saying that at all. There's accountability on everybody. I think for a guy at that stage of his career where LeBron James is, you need somebody way more seasoned than just 2 seasons.
Well, I mean, when they hired Darvin Ham, he was so unseasoned he had 0 seasons. So, I mean, we knew that going in. Look, here's what I will say. I defer to your expertise on some of the decisions he made rotation-wise over the course of the season. I can't pretend I'm following it that closely day in, day out. But what I can say is the ultimate judgment of a coach to me is, did your team achieve more than, less than, or about exactly what you would have expected? And I would say they've achieved more than. He took that team to the conference final a year ago. This year, they just got the worst possible matchup, and they played Denver almost to a standstill in that first round. I don't think that anyone could look at Darvin Ham and say he didn't do a good job as that team's coach. That's one person's opinion.
It's a classic scapegoat situation because the roster was flawed, especially in the competitive West. 47 wins is a reasonable achievement, but because of the midseason failures, they end up in the play-in. And if he's on the borderline of being fired going into that playoff series, they're ahead in all 5 games at the half. They only win 1 of them. That's just a hard thing to overcome. The challenge now for the Lakers is to get somebody to take this job because there's not a lot of experienced coaches out there, and the Lakers are not historically known for paying coaches. They paid Phil Jackson kicking and screaming, and the price of high-level coaches is extremely high. It's going to cost 8 figures in a bidding war, and I'm not even sure there's even that much to bid on.
Wait, so say that again, because I think people watching this show, sitting home, are thinking, who wouldn't want to be the coach of the Lakers? You walk in, glamour franchise, you get to live in L.A., you got LeBron, you got AD, you got all of the celebrities sitting there and everything else. Sounds like the best coaching job in the NBA.
It's kind of like being the vice president. You're maybe number 3 or number 4 in charge. It's a prestige job, but you're not getting paid that well all the time, and you get blamed. So it's not the greatest job. And by the way, if you look at our Ramona Shelburne wrote about this the other day, about since Phil Jackson left, it's basically been a revolving door.
Yes, that's my point.
Very difficult to get
every other year. I think I said biannual. It should be semi-annual. They don't fire coaches twice a year. They fire them every other year. So I mixed up my pronoun there, but I think you are whatever the prefix is. But the point remains the same. It is a terrible coaching job. What Windy is telling us, I'll say it more directly, that's a terrible coaching job because if it goes great, you get none of the credit. And if it goes badly, you get fired immediately.
Well, and here's another big problem. The roster's flawed. The roster has limitations, okay? That's where I'm going to defend Darvin Ham. And LeBron and AD basically did him in by their passive-aggressive approach. Right? It's easy to not support, and you know what that's going to lead to, and it's basically what they did to Darvin Ham. Here's the other problem with the job. you now have a situation where this team is not built to win in the regular season. So you're going to end up putting your season at the mercy of who you end up with in the first round, which is exactly what happened to them. Because when you mess around and you're a play-in type team, you end up with the wrong team in the first round. This year it was Denver. Well, maybe next year it's Minnesota or Oklahoma City or Dallas adds another guy. Whoever it may be, if you're trying to come from that slot, your season's going to end pretty quickly. And you got a guy pushing 40 that's your best player. So you want to take the job. Big question for a coach is, hey, I don't want to do this just for 1 year or two. What's next for the Lakers? So whoever takes that job has to be thinking about to be that I'm going to be left to coach.
Well, if it's 3 years away, it won't be your problem because you're going to get fired in 2 no matter what. So history tells us. Look, the bottom line of it is I'm going to throw names at you here, right? And then we're going to shoot them down. everyone says they want Ty Lue.
Ty Lue.
Right? Is that the guy they want?
That would be my number one option. If he doesn't stay with the Clippers because you're always questioning the availability of Kawhi Leonard, your other team's best player, I go for Ty Lue if you can get it.
I turn to Windy.
Not happening. Woj reported on Friday the Clippers want to extend him. Ty has indicated he'd like to extend there. Nobody has more money than Steve Ballmer. He's under contract next year anyway.
Right. He pays coaches.
Doesn't mean I don't want him.
How about no, I get it. Now, who would be your next choice?
I would try to go out there. Well, he just signed, but I would love Jason Kidd.
Because
of his relationship with LeBron.
I turn to Windy again.
In the last half hour, the Mavericks announced a multi-year contract extension with Jason Kidd.
You got any other great ideas
if
for me?
If you're looking for a coach who's under contract somewhere else, it ain't going to be Ty Lue. It really ain't going to be Jason Kidd.
So you're talking to me about like Kenny Atkinson.
I would look at, if in the league teams are watching the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are looking for a new president of basketball operations. They haven't hired that guy yet. If that person gets hired, what happens with Monty Williams? Now, I know Monty has an $80 million 6-year contract, and maybe they bring him back. Maybe the person they hire brings him back. But if there's a coaching change there, just remember, Monty was offered the Lakers job several years ago when they hired Frank Vogel. He took the Suns job instead. I don't necessarily think this is going to happen. I don't even know if Monty would even want the Laker job, but I'm just going to say, if you're a Laker fan and you're dreaming of somebody else's coach, it ain't going to be Ty Lue, it ain't going to be Jason
What about
Kidd.
Mike Budenholzer?
It's going to take 8 figures a year, I believe, to hire Mike Budenholzer. So that's where you got to start with that. And plus, Mike Budenholzer typically wants to have a lot of say, a lot of control. We'll see if the Lakers will be willing to offer.
Are we realistically talking about J.J. Redick having an opportunity to become the Lakers'
Aren't
head
we?
coach?
I mean,
is that where we're going? If you're J.J. Redick, is that the job you want for your first head coaching position?
Well, that's a different conversation.
But no, it's the same conversation. Because we're talking about this being a depth trap for a lot of coaches in 2 years. Is that the first job you want?
Let me text him. Hold on a second. I'll just text
find out.
JJ
right now.
Is that as you step away from putting on the 7th green right now at the bridge?
What happened to the last 2 guys that LeBron?
That's what I'm saying.
Was a member of a team and they hired a coach with no NBA head coaching experience. What happened to David Blatt?
Yeah,
what happened to Darvin Ham?
David Blatt didn't even make. Did he make half a season? Like, remember that? He got fired
the job you want.
He got fired like 8 games. Oh no, he coached. He got to the finals the first time.
Got to the finals.
That's correct.
He got canned.
And then he got fired.
Because
You're right.
Ty Lue was sitting there and LeBron had a relationship with him.
I'm sorry, I've lost track of all the coaches that have gotten fired coaching LeBron James.
So he went to the finals and was out half a year later. Darvin Ham goes to the conference finals in his first year as a head coach in this league. He's out year 2.
Right.
The expectation level is so high, and the power that the star players have in LA. That's where it's a little bit of a trap for someone with no coaching experience because you can blame it on that.
Playoffs.